Hey everybody, I'm Doug Keeling and I'm back with a few tips about setting up your documents for print. If you've never sent anything off to a printer before, this will give you a few quick tips about how to set things up properly in your Photoshop document. So first of all, let's talk about bleed. So bleed refers to when the ink extends all the way to the edge of the page as if it's bleeding off the edge. Now that stands in contrast to what you can typically do in your home printer, where you print something out, but because your printer can't fully print all the way to the edge of the page, you end up with a white border around the whole thing. Instead of getting something like this, I'm going to instead get something that looks more like this. In fact, if you hit Command or Control P to bring up the print dialog, you'll see that Photoshop is actually telling us that these diagonal lines around the edge mean that this area will not be printed. Now there are some printer settings that you can adjust in here, but typically you just will not be able to print to the edge of the page, especially on a home office kind of printer. Now when sending a design to a commercial printer, you'll want to set up the design to take these things into account. If you want an actual 8.5 by 11 inch poster to be printed, you'll have to design it a little bit larger so that they can crop it to the final size. This is going to be a small example, but let's talk about a business card. So if you've ever measured a business card, you know that the standard size is 3.5 inches wide by 2 inches tall. Now anytime we set up a document for print, you need to keep in mind that the printer will most likely require about 1/8 of an inch of additional space in the design to allow for that cropping to take place, and that's 1/8 of an inch on each side. So instead of setting up our business card at 3.5 by 2 inches, we're actually going to add 1/8 of an inch around the whole design. So my final document size needs to be 3.5 plus 0.125, which is 1/8, plus 0.125 for the other side of it. So that gives us a total width of 3.75 or 3 3/4 inches. And the height is going to be 2 inches plus 0.125 for the top, plus 0.125 for the bottom, which is 2.25 or 2 1/4 inches. Now once you have your document set up, make sure that your rulers are set to inches rather than pixels or centimeters. Then we need to actually add some guides in here so we know where our safe boundaries are that we can work in. So in Photoshop CC 2018, you can go up to View and select New Guide Layout. But hang with me, if you don't have this version of Photoshop, there's another way that you can do this, and I'll get to that in a minute. So to account for the trim or crop line, we need to go in about 0.125 inches. So what you need to do is set the columns to be 1, the rows to be 1, the gutters can be set to 0, and then go down and enable the margin and set that to 0.125 inches on each side and click OK. Now if you have an older version of Photoshop, don't worry, you can either place the guides manually through the menu, which is not super easy or fun, or you can just drag them from the edge of the ruler. So hold down the Shift key and click on the ruler and drag into your document, and you'll see that by holding Shift, the guide sticks to every tick mark on the ruler. And this works whether it's in metric or imperial or pixels or picas or whatever. Just make sure that your guides are on the 1/8 of an inch mark and you're good to go. You can see that in this document I've created some visual indicators here that kind of help me clearly keep in mind what each line means. So this is my trim or crop area. Once you have the trim or crop line set up, most printers also recommend that you keep all of your text and important graphics inside a safe area. And so they typically recommend staying another 1/8 of an inch inside the crop area. Some printers require more, but just keep that in mind that typically it's about 1/8 of an inch. So remember, the printer will physically be cutting through a stack of these things with a sharp blade, so obviously they want to make sure that there's a little bit of room for error. So again, either drag the guides manually from the edges or go back into New Guide Layout and repeat that same process that we did the first time, this time using 0.25 inches rather than 0.125 inches. And so that's 1/4 of an inch in rather than 1/8 of an inch. And make sure that you don't clear the existing guides in the process. So this defines our live area or safe area, and again I've created a more visual indicator here so you can clearly see what the live area is that we have to work in. Once you have those guides in place, you're all set to go to town with your design and make sure that what you've created doesn't get cropped off, and also that the ink will extend fully to the edge of the page when it's cropped off. I've even masked off the area that will be cropped so I can toggle it on and off. To do this, I just created a rectangle along the crop line and then set the path style to subtract so that it inverts that shape. And then I changed the color of that shape to basically the same color as the background, just so it won't distract me, and that way I can quickly toggle that on and off to see a better representation of what my end product's going to be. In the next tutorial, we're going to take a look at crop marks and fold marks and how to get your document ready even further to send to the printer. And if there's enough interest, I may do a quick tutorial on how to create the bleeding or dripping ink effect that you see in the thumbnail, so stay tuned for that as well. If you're interested in that, leave me a comment and let me know. If I've earned your subscription, please click that subscribe button down there so you can be notified when the next video is released. And if you like this video, please show your support by liking it and sharing it. And until next time, I'm Doug Keeling, and I'll see you on the next video.